army of support for victims and survivors. And so we want you up here with us.
I'll get him back. I'm waiting for you.
Good morning. I'm Sarah A. Ford. I'm legal director at the South Carolina Victim Assistance Network. And it's an honor to welcome you to the 4th annual Victims Matter Rally. Together today, we're not here as individuals, but as a powerful community united in purpose, as a formidable force of hope and resilience. As a victims' rights lawyer, I've had the privilege of standing alongside many courageous individuals. They faced unimaginable hardships. Their stories are a testament to the human spirit's capacity for strength, and they remind us why we're here today. On behalf of the South Carolina Victim Assistance Network, the South Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault, our dedicated community partners, and most importantly, the brave victims and survivors of crime, thank you for standing with us today. Your presence speaks volumes. Following the powerful momentum of a previous rally sparked by the Bowen Turner sexual assault cases out of Orangeburg, which continues to be an ongoing saga for the victims in seeking justice and accountability, we recognize the urgent need for an annual rally to advocate for all victims and survivors of violent crime in South Carolina. Let me be clear, victims' rights are not just ideas, they are laws. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that these rights are not only acknowledged, but actively upheld. Victims deserve a seat at the table of justice. Victims deserve a justice system that stands alongside them, one that sees them as more than afterthoughts. Victims deserve a system that centers them and their experience with trauma-informed training for all those who interact with victims, including law enforcement, prosecutors, and judges. Victims deserve laws that expand protections for them instead of expanding protections for those with deep pockets. Today, we stand together to affirm that victims are at the heart of what we do. Throughout this event, we're going to hear from folks who work with crime victims, who prosecute, who advocate, who write legislation on behalf of crime victims. And most importantly, we'll hear from our survivor speaker, Courtney Hunter, a mother faced with unimaginable challenges who is transforming her pain into a powerful quest for justice. To begin, I'd like to thank the individual who had the most wonderful idea to bring us all up here as that collective, our Attorney General, Alan Wilson.
I really look forward to seeing the pictures of this press conference. There's a good-looking group of people standing up here with us today. Some of them represent service providers who provide services to those who on their worst day can't imagine, probably feel so alone, feel like they have no one out there fighting for them. And sometimes the very criminal justice system that is designed to rescue victims from something can almost re-victimize them because it's a very scary process. There are other people up here standing today who are either victims themselves or up here representing a loved one who was lost to a senseless violent act. And to them I say, we've got your back. I'm Alan Wilson. I'm the Attorney General for the state of South Carolina, and one of the things that I like to talk about is the role of the Attorney General's office is to help be a bridge from victimhood to survivorship, from giving a voice to people who have no voice. This is what we do in the AG's office. In 2017, the legislature did something very good, and I commend them. It was bipartisan, everyone came together, and they consolidated all of the state victim services under the Office of the Attorney General. They used to be in multiple offices, the Office of the Governor, Office of the Department of Public Safety, and basically all the victim services that are supported in this state are now done through the Office of the Attorney General. So as a self-appointed chief victims advocate, I'm here today to say that we're going to continue to fight for funding and fight for legislation that supports the men and women who are represented by all the people standing up here today. I'll talk briefly about that. The first thing that we do in the Attorney General's office is it's our job to go out there and fight for funding for victim services providers, whether you're a nonprofit organization, whether you're a victims advocate working with a law enforcement organization, a sheriff's department, a police department, a solicitor's office, or even the Attorney General's office. Our job is to go out there and find the funding to give you the resources you need to go out there and serve those who need our support and our help. I tell people all the time that the number one core function of government is public safety. You know what else is the core function of public safety? Serving victims. And so there's nothing more important, there are things probably as important, but there's nothing more important than standing up for the rights of victims as they navigate a very scary time in their life, a very difficult time in their life. So last year, as y'all know, over the last several years, rather, the amount of federal dollars coming down to all the states, in particular South Carolina, has dwindled drastically. I think about 5 or 6 years ago, we were around $50+ million, and now we're barely over $10 million of that grant money that comes down through the state of South Carolina and gets dispersed out to many of the nonprofit groups and also to supplement the budgets of some of our local law enforcement agencies. As that money has gone down, we have gone to the General Assembly and asked for funding that will allow these victim services. I'm seeing the kiosks, the tables out here. Many of these folks receive funding with the aid of these grants. And I told the legislature, you represent various communities. These people live in your communities. They serve victims from your communities. And when those dollars dry up, they're going to shutter their doors because they're not able to stay open. And once these organizations shut their doors, it is very difficult to open them back up. And sometimes it's impossible because people move on. The last thing I want to see happen is one of these organizations close their doors that provide vital services, vital support to the families and the victims who so desperately need it. So last year we asked for $15 million, we got $5 million. This year we've asked for another $15 million. The House has given us about $3.5 million. It's back in the Senate. We're asking for $15 million. So I'm hoping when they reconcile the House and the Senate budgets that they will at least set aside $15 million, which is a fraction of what we were getting 6-7 years ago. But it's enough to keep the doors open and keep the services going to the men and women who are providing invaluable services. So call your legislator, call your House member. I've got senators sitting here. Senator, I'm going to need your help, and I know you're going to be there for me, so I appreciate you. We need that money in the budget for these organizations. I want to close with this. For the men and women, for the people at home watching this press conference, I want you to know that you're probably, especially if you're a victim of a crime, you probably feel very alone. You probably feel lost. You probably feel hopeless. I want you to look up here. Look at the top of these steps. Look at all these men and women up here. They come from all over the state, and they provide services throughout South Carolina. You're not alone. There's an army here, an army to serve you, an army to support you, an army to care for you. So please don't give up hope. Understand that we're fighting for you, and I'm fighting for you, and I look forward to talking to everyone as we move forward to try to get this money to the streets and the communities where they belong. Thank you, and I want to thank you, Sarah, for having me here today to support this event. God bless you.
Good morning. Thank you, Attorney General Wilson, for those comments. Without that, we really need it. My name is Shannon Nix, and I'm the Associate Director for the South Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. We represent, thank you. All right. I'll say it again. My name is Shannon Nix. I'm the Associate Director of the South Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. We represent 22 member organizations who provide confidential 24/7 services to victims and survivors of domestic and sexual violence in communities across South Carolina. These services include emergency housing and shelter, forensic exam accompaniment, counseling, legal support, financial assistance, and children's services, in addition to education and prevention services. So you can see just some of those really important services Attorney General Wilson was just speaking about. We also provide our member organizations, community partners, and victim service providers with information, training, and technical assistance on issues that impact victims and survivors. We work proactively to increase awareness of how laws and policies impact the lives and healing of survivors of sexual and domestic violence. According to the Centers for Disease Control, almost 40% of South Carolinian women and 30% of men in our state have experienced contact, sexual violence, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner during their lifetime and reported a related impact. Related impacts include physical and mental health issues such as injury, chronic health conditions, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. Another type of related impact that is less discussed is the monetary cost of domestic and sexual violence. For domestic violence, the annual economic cost to our state is estimated to be $352 million. And for sexual assault, the estimate is $122,000 per incident. These costs include medical and mental health services for domestic and sexual assault-related injuries, lost productivity from work, and legal costs, among others. A program that we have at Skibasa that works to mitigate some of the economic hardship associated with domestic and sexual violence is our flexible funding program, in which we utilize grant funding from the Allstate Foundation to provide cash grants to survivors via our member organizations. In fiscal year 2024, we were able to provide a total of $65,089 for 36 domestic violence survivors. This year, we provided $70,513 of direct cash assistance to 77 survivors. These cash grants allow survivors to obtain and maintain financial independence, with requests that range from help with rent and utilities to educational courses that would allow them to better support themselves. We are grateful to the Allstate Foundation for their understanding that survivors know what they need. We strongly believe that flexible funding is a powerful way to counteract some of the negative effects of domestic and sexual violence, and we encourage other funders to see how it can help people move forward with their lives. The services that our member organizations, some of whom are here today, provide are invaluable and necessary. The current instability around federal funding will significantly and negatively impact their ability to provide services to victims of violent crime. We are grateful to the staff of these organizations for the services they provide, and we acknowledge how difficult the work is. Please take time to visit their tables and learn about all the things they do to help all survivors in the communities they serve. Thank you. And now I would love to introduce Senator Devine, who's also been a fantastic partner. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. First, let me say how grateful I am to be standing with all of you, survivors, advocates, families, and friends, united in purpose, bound by compassion, and anchored in truth. To the organizers of this powerful event, especially Sarah Ford, thank you. Thank you for reminding this State House and all that walk its halls and grounds that victims matter, that their lives, that their stories, their healing, and their justice is not optional. It is essential for a strong South Carolina. And to the survivors in the crowd today, you are the reason that we are here. Your courage, your voice, your strength lights a fire in each of us to do better and to be better, and we will be better. You've taken pain and turned it into power. You've turned silence into your testimony, And I want you all to know from the bottom of my heart that I am with you, and there are several legislators in this building behind you that are really with you. You know, I often think about how we raise our children in a world that feels far too heavy, far too broken at times. As a mom of young kids, I want to wrap my children in safety. And as a public servant, I want to make that safety real for every child, every family, every neighbor, and every South Carolinian. But the truth is, we can't get there with just hope alone. We got to get there with action. South Carolina has to face some very hard truths. We rate the highest in the country among women that are killed by men. We've seen far too many families torn apart by domestic violence, sexual assault, and senseless gun violence. And what hurts even more is knowing that too many cases, those cries for help came long before the crime and the death. That is why this work is not just policy for me. It's personal. It's about our community, and it's about justice. And we must do more to protect those who are vulnerable, not just in words, but in our resources, in our legislation, in how we train our police, how we support our courts, and how we fund, yes, our education systems, our youth programs, and our prevention services. We need a system that believes survivors the first time that they speak. We need a system that doesn't blame victims. We need a system that asks, how can we help keep you safe? And we need better laws. We also need more empathy, more training, and we must create a culture that refuses to normalize abuse and violence. We need a system that listens without judgment, and then we must make a system that prioritizes healing. Let me tell you what gives me hope, though. It is these people standing in this crowd. It is people like the ones standing behind me. People who care. People are fighting every single day to make South Carolina better. And people who are showing up year after year to this rally. We will not let the pain of the victims be invisible. We will carry their names, we will carry their stories, and we will carry their legacies in every single conversation, every courtroom, every piece of legislation as we push forward for a better South Carolina. And as a state senator, I promise you this. I will continue to be a voice inside these chambers. Not just as a senator, though, but as a woman, as a mother, and as a neighbor of all of you. Because justice isn't just about punishment. It's about dignity, it's about restoration, it's about belonging, and it's about healing. So before we leave here today, I am a child of a Baptist church, so I'm going to tell you, I don't let anyone go without giving you 3 points of action. And so I want to ask every one of you to take a step. We need to, number one, make sure that you are communicating with your legislators. You need to write them. You need to call them. You need to meet with them. You need to tell them your stories. Every single piece of legislation has a story behind it. It has a face behind it. We cannot let legislators think that there are not faces, there are not stories, there are not families, there are not South Carolinians behind every single thing that we can do to move this state forward. We need to make sure that people understand that protection of survivors and victims is not a political issue, but it's a human issue. It's a South Carolina issue, and I know that we can do that. Number two, we need to support legislation that protects our communities. From common sense gun reform, to investing in trauma-informed care and mental health support, to demanding funding for our shelters, for our advocates, for our survivor-led organizations, and our youth violence prevention programs. All of these groups are on the forefront and front lines every single day, and they cannot do the work on hope and prayers, but they can only do it with our funding and our support. And then thirdly, if you don't see change in your community, run for something. Before I became a public official, I was a legal services attorney. And General Wilson, I worked 5 years as head of the Violence Against Women program in the State Attorney General's office. as someone who was working to protect the victims of sexual assault and domestic violence every single day in this state, I became weary. I became disenchanted because I could fight really hard every single day, but I didn't find that the laws in our state supported those victims and my clients. And so what did I do? I didn't have any political experience. I honestly didn't even have a desire to be an elected official. But I saw that change that I wanted to see started with me. And so I ran for office, and now I stand here every single day in the state Senate, continuing that fight, just in a different position. We need to make sure that we're speaking out, we're showing up. We need to make sure that our voices, our votes, and our vision are protected. We need to fight for a safer, more compassionate South Carolina, and we know that as we continue to fight together, we will be heard. This movement does not end on these steps, but it begins here. It lives in each one of us, and together we will keep going and fighting for victims and survivors of South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I'd next like to introduce my sheriff, Sheriff Leroy Ravenel from Orangeburg, a true servant leader and true advocate for victims and survivors, to introduce our next speaker.
Good morning. First, I want to thank God for the opportunity to be here this morning. I would take this time to thank two partners up here, Attorney Wilson, Senator Devine, good friend here, Ms. Ford. Thank you so much for being partners of ours. Every year since the last 38 years, I've been getting up, putting on a badge and a gun, driving down the streets of Orangeburg County for 38 years. And every year is something totally different. Every incident is something totally different. But when I had an opportunity to meet a young lady, and I must say this morning that it wasn't a pleasure to meet her under those circumstances. But after meeting the young lady that I met one Friday night, I had an opportunity to go to her home, her family home, and to give her some news because she had a tragedy where her son was killed, and I promised them in a press conference in 2 weeks, a couple days after the incident, I promised them in that press conference that the next press conference would have it on the courthouse steps, and we would have those individuals in custody. When I made that promise, Ms. Ford, we had no clue to who had committed this crime. But I think with the power and the prayer of God and the help of everything that God stands for, we have an opportunity to make arrests and have to go meet this young lady and her family on a Friday night. And they were doing exactly what they do every Friday night, having a family function. And I must say, when we walked into that room and I met Ms. Courtney and her family, it was like a burden lifted up off of me. I must say, Ms. Courtney, you have been a strength since this tragedy. You have been a strength for Orangeburg County. You and your family have made it possible for law enforcement in Orangeburg County to strive even in a time of diversity. And it's kind of hard to say I know what you're going through, but I know at some point in your life that you came to a crossroad, and you could have made many decisions. You could have been angry with the world because your son was doing home, getting ready for bed. But you made a decision to try to empower Orangeburg County, and I must say, on behalf of Orangeburg County and law enforcement, you have changed the landscape in Orangeburg County. We have posters, billboards all over this county, all over Orangeburg County, in honor of Ms. Courtney and her family and little Princess. In my office, ever since this incident, there's a big picture of Winston in my office that been there and will always be there. Courtney, I've heard a lot of people, a lot of young people, my nieces and nephews call me heard that. But I must say that you are the first one, I believe, that gave somebody the name Uncle Sheriff. Courtney calls me Uncle Sheriff, and we will never say it on behalf of myself and the Sheriff's Office. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ms. Ford, for this opportunity. Thank you for this partnership. And I have to say this, you know, in law enforcement, without partnerships and without good relationships with people like Senator Devine, and also must say, as being a past president of the Sheriff's Association, I never known the relationship that law enforcement have with the Attorney General. But since that time, Attorney General, since myself as serving as president on behalf of the law enforcement in South Carolina, we cannot do it without your support. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would, help me bring to your front Ms. Courtney Hunter.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Courtney Hunter. I am the mom of 2 boys. My oldest, who now watches out for me, Ahmad Hunter. My youngest, 6-year-old Winston Hunter, who now watches over me. On May 13, 2022, I lost my 6-year-old to gun violence. Before I tell you the tragic story of Winston, let me tell you who Winston was. For 6 years, he was loving, fun, energetic, my dancing machine. Winston was 6 days away from his kindergarten graduation, where I found out on his funeral day that he placed in the 6th percentile top of his class when he tested. Winston was one of those ones where he made his presence known when he walked into a room. Full of life, full of energy, and the smile that you would never forget. On the 13th of May 2022 at the hour of 11:35 p.m., that was taken away from me in a snap of a finger. Why? Because of a senseless act of gun violence. As Uncle Ralph Nell said, every Friday night my family gets together, spend time with one another. We just spend that time to share and love on one another. That particular night, we went home a little earlier than usual because I knew the next day I had to take Winston out to find his outfit for graduation because in his words, he had to be swagged out. Went home, normal. The boys went and took their showers. Winston liked the big TV, so he asked me, Mom, can I stay on the couch tonight? Sure, son, you can. Why not? We home, in the safe of our own home. Soon as he left out of my room to go lay on the couch, in about 5 or 10 minutes, Winston's dad and I heard popping noise, not knowing what it is. Next thing you know, Winston's dad hollered out and said, get down, get down. I got down. Hoping and praying my kids got down also. Trell got up, went to find out what was going on. The next thing I heard was Trell hollering, boo, call 911. As a mother not knowing which one of my children were his. Then my oldest son came in the room. Instantly I knew it was my baby boy. Trell brought my lifeless 6-year-old son to me and gave it to me in my arms. Those wounds are so vivid till yet today it affects me. The scream that Trell hollered, called 911, affects me till yet today. That was the last time that I actually held my 6-year-old son in my arms, was on May 13, 2022. I thank God every day for Orangeburg County Sheriff's Department and their advocates, because I don't think I would be where I'm at today if it wasn't for them, if it wasn't for the support of my family, and the man above who gave me the strength to keep me. Remember I mentioned Winston was 6. That number rings is going to always stick with me, because after the investigation was going on, there was a total of 6 guys involved in my case. So now I'm having to go through court system 5 or 6 times and keep reliving that particular night. I'm constantly being victimized. Change needs to be done. I can remember Winston's teacher coming to me, giving me one of his last assignments. And that assignment was that his dream was for everyone to be nice. If a 6-year-old can think that way, why can't we? So as his mom, I started a foundation in honor of Winston through the Eyes of Winston Foundation. Through that foundation, we're going to be bringing awareness about gun violence, awareness about gun safety, speaking to the young people so they can change their mind, change their mindset. Also, I'm going to be Winston's voice because I'm constantly being re-victimized, so where are my rights? I feel as though that the suspects, they have a lot of options. But as a victim, I have minimum options. They're not being re-victimized. I am. So yes, they might have took Winston's body, they took Winston's soul, but like he said, his dream was for everyone to be nice. I'm going to fight for that. As his voice, I'm his voice now, I'm going to talk to the legislators if I have to. I'm going to speak to everyone I can so these gun laws can change, so we the victims can have more options. We did not ask to be victims. We are where we're supposed to be at. Ahmad, myself, Winston's dad, and Winston, we were home. We were robbed of our rights. So yes, as the title of this rally, victims deserve a seat at the table, I want my seat. I deserve my seat. I will get my seat one way or the other. I'm going to be sitting at the table. Because we need to make changes. I went to South Carolina Victims Conference last week and learned something, heard someone else's story, and it stuck with me. And I'm going to use it today. I'm going to start living by the 2 C's, chance and choice. Because when you wake up in the morning, God gave you a chance. So all of us out here right now, we have breath in our body. We all have a chance. Now what choice are you going to make? I'm choosing to stand for victims. Not only for Winston, because Winston's not the only victim. We have other victims that's up here that have lost their lives senseless. So I'm standing with them also. I'm fighting with them also. So I'm making a choice to stand. They took Winston's choice. They didn't take mine. So I'm going to choose wisely and stand and fight. Legislators, you woke up this morning, you had a chance. You got a chance to make changes to these laws. Choose wisely. Thank you.
incredible testimony. Thank you for sharing that with us today. Let us remember as we close that hope is not a passive thing. It is a powerful force that compels us to act. Hope drives us to challenge the status quo, to advocate for the justice system that truly serves all victims, and inspires us to fight against indifference and to demand accountability. Let us carry these victim stories forward. Let us be the advocates they need, and let us commit ourselves to creating a future where every victim is heard, valued, and supported. I'd like to thank our steering committee with representatives from MAD, SCDC, the Attorney General's Office, SCAD-VASA, and SC-VAN. Thank you to your commitment to victims and survivors. Thank you, our community partners, for being here. I urge you all to make your way around the tables, if you haven't, to learn about resources and support for our community. And I encourage you to stay and pick up an advocacy and action flyer at the SC-VAN table, where you can learn to meet and talk with your elected legislators to discuss important issues for you and for South Carolina crime victims. As we move forward, let us carry the torch of hope high. Let us be relentless in our pursuit of justice and unwavering in our commitment to protect the rights of every victim. Together we can create that, a world where healing begins, where justice prevails, and every victim finds a seat at the table of justice. Thank you for being here today, and thank you all for standing together in this vital mission. Thank you.